Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being the show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Falling Order. Another great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. What I really like is, well, for one, Alex and Taka having that open conversation, like, oh yeah, what about dreams and stuff like that? Which brought up some interesting conversations, because it's like even Taka broke it down like, oh yeah, it seems like basically your abilities kind of stem from your personal experiences and what you've been through that kind of shape your abilities, which is kind of interesting because she had brought up like, oh, could Taka do what the Shadow Man can? He's like, well, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's not like Taka's ever really tried before to really see what they can really be able to do. But it's like, in retrospect, it's kind of like, huh, it kind of does make sense because at least in Tessa's case, it's like, oh, she's a tracker. It's like, because she spent so much time trying to look for her son. So obviously that would translate over into her power. So I just thought that was, I mean, her dreaming ability. So it's just kind of interesting how that works like that. But basically they're looking into this report. The reporter, he was the dude that ended up, who was sleepwalking, ended up killing himself. Also, we ended up, guys, there's so much that went down in this episode. I'm trying to like, cause it's all connected. So I'm trying to break everything down bit by bit. But for one, it's like, we ended up meeting the Shadow Man in this episode. It's played by J.R. Bourne, who I will always think of and look to as Papa Argent from Teen Wolf. He will always be Papa Argent to me. I know his name's Chris, but it's like he was always Argent to me. That's even a thing in the show. But nevertheless, that's getting off point here. His real name's Tom. It's actually kind of weird. We actually find out why he became the Shadow Man, because it's like, oh yeah, he got laid off from his job. He was there for like 15 years. He got super pissed. For over a year, he couldn't get over it. And then, like, it shows you that this whole Shadow Man thing isn't something he's done for a long time. It's, like, super new to him. So it's like, because it's like, oh, you've been almost laid off for a year. And I'm like, oh, he hadn't even been Shadow Man up to that point. So it means he's literally only been doing this Shadow Man thing for, like, a couple months. It's kind of crazy because it seemed like the moment you look at it, because it goes, okay, so this isn't just some random thing. Like the Shadow Man is a hired gun. He's meant to go after these people specifically, which is kind of an interesting thing because like, oh, he was dropping off stuff like to them and he was kind of getting paid for it and stuff. I was like, oh, he's dropping off specific items and stuff like that. I was like, oh, so like, this isn't just like, oh, he's at the top, like he's just some psychopath doing this, messing with people. It's like, no, he's hired to do it. Which begs the question, when he went after Kumiko, was that him just protecting himself, or how did anyone know about that? Maybe it's because he saw Kumiko looking to him. So, I mean, I guess that also stems from his connections, because he's definitely connected to some powerful people. So I guess they knew about Taka's investigation into this whole situation, and so they wanted to remove his mom from the situation. Begs the question, like, did they know about his mom, or did they set the whole Sabine thing up of being like, well, his mom's there, but it was more so to keep her mouth shut about things. So it couldn't just been like, oh, well, let's just use Sabine to kill him. It's just like, well, she happened to be the easiest. I wonder, what I'm keep bouncing between was that their decision to use Sabine and do that whole thing, or was that 100%? It's like, well, we need Kumiko taken care of. Whatever you need to do it, just do it. So, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to me that's the setup for our main villain. I mean, the fact is we got introduced to him too. Like, I don't know if this season's only going to be 10 episodes like the first season or not, but it's like, if it is, like, we're halfway through the season, we already he's still kind of bottom of the barrel because he's only like, in the metaphorical sense, he's still the gun. We don't know who's wielding the gun, so. It's actually kind of messed up because we end up finding out that what started all this was Sam, because Sam was the boss that fired him. So it's like, dude, you were so pissed at him for firing you during the letter. It's like, oh, you couldn't even do it to me face to face, that you manipulated him into killing his wife. I was like, that is rough. I guess it's a sense in which that turns into the question of, well, because it seems like all of his targets are people specifically, the people, his bosses, the people that are employing him want him to go after. So it's like, well, what's the point of going after Sam? Maybe the whole point is to acquire his business. It seems like they're handling things more on a political scale. So that kind of makes me wonder, was that whole Sam situation just test, for him to like show them what he's capable of, and plus at the same time get his own revenge? Or was it like, oh, we want you to take Sam out anyway? And it's like, oh yeah. And the fact of the matter is, it's kind of a bonus because it's like, oh, this is the guy that screwed me over. It's like, there's too much coincidence in that. So I think it might have just been like a test run type of thing. But I mean, I don't know. We'll wait and see. There might be a lot more to that whole situation. Because for him, it's a situation of like, you ruined my life. Because of that, I lost my home, my wife, because he because he just couldn't get out of his funk. That's all he could focus on. And that poor dude, Frank, it's like, oh yeah, oh, Frank O, just because of his last name. And it's like, yeah, Frank O just talked a lot. And it's, what did you do? You just stumbled into his dreams. It's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, I can control stuff in here. Oh, and then we see where the bug thing came from. It's like, oh yeah, this food is disgusting. And then bugs started popping up there. And then he had Frank bite his tongue. It's like, wow, what made you decide to leap from that? It's like, oh, messing with your food, messing with you, to bite your tongue off. And he did it in real life. What even caught me off guard was the fact is that he talked to someone about it, and the lady was like, "Are you crazy? Yeah, I'm gonna suggest you go see a doctor because it's what you know." So the fact of the matter is, you went from that. You were just kind of like a dude down on his luck, to full blown psychopath, just like that, doing what you're doing. Like I said, going back to it, it's like you're so pissed at Sam. It's like, you ruined my life and everything. You literally had the man kill his wife. What kind of like justice is that? That is some like. That is like some Harambe, not I'm about to say Harambe, Hammurabi type of stuff of like an eye for an eye. Like, oh, you ruined my life, so I basically ruined your life by having you kill your wife, and then you end up in jail type of thing. So I'm curious, like, because I was thinking immediately, like, when he went to Sam, I was like, oh man, he's going to kill Sam. But I was like, no, he went there on his own to kind of mess with Sam. It's like, oh, I want you to see that it's me that basically put you in this situation. Because at first I was like, oh man, that means they might be cleaning house, and so they might want to like make Sam like quote unquote kill himself or something. And then I was like, oh man, that's gonna suck because that means Sabine might be next. But it seemed the way he makes it sound, I was like, oh, my boss gave me the day off. So it's like what he was doing there was kind of all on his own. So they haven't got to that point yet where they're like, oh, we need to kind of clean up this mess and kind of get rid of any loose ends. So it hasn't got to that point yet, but eventually it will. So I don't know, like I said, it just seems so petty that you became literally a villain for that. But I mean, I guess like different villains have their different reasons. I am curious about the whole bug motif. I guess for him, maybe it's a situation of he feels like he's a bug, that he's just scurrying and trying to eat scraps that people will leave behind or something, that he's just something that people feel like they can just step on and squish. He's like, I'm that disgusting. I mean, I don't really get it. That's how I look at it. I don't know. But maybe it's just because it was born in that moment with Frank, and he was just like, oh, I like this, so I'm going to use bugs as my thing. It is kind of neat what it looks like when he shifts into that form, because basically he just be himself, and then like a dark cloud encompasses him, and he becomes the Shadow Man. So, but like I said, everything is being connected. The whole Shadow Man situation to the Laney situation to the reporter being dead situation is all connected, and it all goes back to Bennett. And it's all because it doesn't even have this, like, Whitaker is just a tool for them. Like, these are some powerful people. This all circles back to the people who are buying all these different people. And it's like I said, for now, it seems like it's just dreamers, because dreamers can be manipulated. Like, obviously, you see what they're doing with Woody to try and gain political advantage. I guess, like, if you get enough dreamers under your belt, you can just, well, because also, it's not even, no, it's because I'm being stupid. It's not even just about what you could do with them. It's what other people can do. It's like, oh, we're going to turn into, because it's human trafficking. It's like, oh, look, this person's a dreamer. They can do this and that. It's like, you can do whatever you want to. You want to take down your political enemies? This person would be the perfect person to do. So I think it's going to be something like that. Probably kind of like something similar to what they might have had planned for James, the different groups. Because that's something Bill kind of brought up this episode. Once again, he's like, I went after James because I didn't want what happened to him to happen to my sister, which even Tess later on is like, didn't you say your sister kind of like got catatonic and was dead? It's like, no, she was kidnapped and then she died. So it's probably a situation of like, they wanted to keep her, under their control, but during whatever happened to her, she ended up dying. So they're just like, cover up the evidence and left her somewhere to just be dead and found. So... But for Bill, it's like, because his sister was because he brought it up last season, like his sister was catatonic and they just locked her, their parents just locked her off somewhere and she died. It's kind of how he left it as, but it's still a situation of like, he didn't want that for James, because like for James, he would have just been locked off somewhere and he would have probably only come out when they needed his ability. Like I said, they're more like treating the dreamers like weapons, right? It's like selling weapons up. Like people with abilities that you can use to kind of shape the world and however you want to, destroy people if you want to, man. As we can see with the Shadow Man, how he uses abilities, stuff that happens in the dream world doesn't just stay there. Like obviously you can do like Woody and infiltrate someone like he did on Mayor Harding, or you could do, like I said, the Shadow Man and bring like real dream consequences into the real world, so because it's interesting too how Taka explained like what it feels like. Basically it's like everything that's ever happened to you basically kind of all happens to you at once. He it's fear, like he generates almost like this aura of fear. And, you know, maybe that's kind of him taking something that's kind of held him down for so long. I mean, like I said, we've only got this like one little look at his life. I mean, maybe there's more to it than that, but it's like his fear, maybe he took what was kind of his biggest thing and then turned it into a weapon, kind of like a Batman villain Scarecrow type of way, you know? Turning fear into this weapon. Like maybe it stemmed from himself, of his own fear, that he was like, oh, I'm gonna weaponize it. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I mean, at the very least, that's what it seems like, you know. You also had the group rescuing Lainey, bringing Bill along, even though they super didn't want to. Also, really quickly about that situation, is it me, or does it seem like they're like making Tess and Burton get closer and closer? I started noticing that like last episode. I'm like, it seemed like each episode they're making that like more and more of a thing, like them joking and spending time together. It's because it seems like, I don't know, that seems like the person she's come to rely on the most, because she's like, oh, I want to go back to, you know, Maine was good because I thought it was safe for James, but Burton kind of spins it with like, well, the fact of the matter is, as long as he got his mom, that's what's more important than a place like Maine. And it's just, I don't know, their conversations, it seems a little flirty. I'm like, oh, are we turning this into a thing? Because you even had that line from James and Burton was like, oh, don't worry, I would make sure nothing happens to your mom. He's like, but I'm worried about you too. I'm like, oh. It's like they're setting it up. It's there in your face, and I'm like, that's just so interesting. I could totally see it. I mean, it's not like they were around each other enough last season for that to be a thing, but you know, given enough time and under these circumstances, it's like, I mean, the last person she got close to and trusted was Jeremy, and we see how that turned out, which we still don't know his angle in all this. Is he connected to this whole Bennett situation? Which really quickly, I felt so bad for Woody a little bit, because for Woody, it's like he went to try and talk to Harding, but she's like, it was you, wasn't it? Because she's like, the fact of the matter is, I start piecing things together. It's just like, it just happened to happen around the time you come here, but Woody didn't say anything, so she kind of figured it out. He didn't deny it. He just couldn't, because he actually likes her, which is something Bennett gets on later on. It's like, you were literally hired for this job because you don't get attached. It's like, what's going on here? The thing is, like, why is he getting attached to this lady? What is it in this situation, you know, that's pushing him to feel this way? I guess when he's led his life of kind of being kind of the douchebag that he's been, all it's done is kind of left him with nothing, you know, and it's just like, I don't know, maybe he just wholeheartedly believes in her and thinks like, oh, she's actually a good person, and he doesn't want to destroy a good person. If it's like, oh, douchebags and terrible people, sure, I need to tear down a terrible person, sure, but it's like, no, she's legitimately a good person, and I'm basically ruining her life. Maybe it has something to stem from like Woody's own personal life that, you know, we don't know about, why he feels the way he does. But even Bennett, and it's something I brought up last episode. I was like, oh, was it something that Whitaker himself suggested doing, like blowing it out there? Or was it Bennett herself? Turns out it was Bennett, because she's like, oh yeah, I told you I'd go along with your plan, and then I decided not to. Don't forget, I'm the one running things here. You're just part of this. Don't get it twisted. Don't ever forget your position. But then she immediately talks to Whitaker about, like, Whitaker's like, oh yeah, like, who does that guy think he is? It's like, he's the guy you should basically owe all your political situation right now too, because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't even be a blip on the political radar. So don't forget that. So it's like, she tears Woody down like that, but then she's like, remember, he's a special boy, and he's a lot more important than you in some regards. You know, it's kind of how she phrased that. So it's like, what is that? Like, which immediately my brain goes, I wouldn't go off telling the guy that can enter people's dreams to kind of go rest up, because it's like, he's most likely to kind of get pissed off and go after one of you. More likely Whitaker just to mess with him, because Whitaker doesn't know what he's capable of, doesn't know about the whole dreaming world. Bennett does, but still. I mean, it begs a question, like, this has to be something that's been happening for a very long time, because Bill brought up his sister and everything, right? So that happened many, many years ago. But that means the fact of the matter is this, because this has to be like some secret society cabal type of stuff of like, oh yeah, dreamers, and this whole thing has been happening for a very long time, especially if it involves his sister. If his sister was like one of the earliest people kind of caught up in this whole situation, that maybe they've perfected the system to the point where it's like, oh yeah, we sell off the dreamer. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is like, maybe it started off back then and now it's grown into a full-blown organization. Maybe it wasn't even a full-blown organization. Maybe it's like an isolated incident type of thing of like, well, there's some people here and there trying to take advantage of trying to human traffic these dreamers type of thing. and maybe now it's a full-blown organization, like, oh, we got this figured out, so what seemed like it was just one particular business, well, not one business, but many businesses last season kind of converging on this. It seems like it's getting even bigger, because it seems it's not just corporations. We have like full on people with huge ties to political stuff connected to this too. So there's a mayor that's connected to it, but once again, he's not deep-seated connected. He's just a means of it ends up being like, oh, we got this mayor in our pocket who could basically do whatever we need him to do. Like, that's all the purpose that he plays in this. So, and because Taka's and Alex's side of things seem more like it's like oh yeah, like they're, trying to get rid of people that could potentially ruin things. Like, for example, the reporter, he was looking into this. He got a lot of, like, they ended up getting a recording from an SD card and stuff like that. Because it seems like they took a lot of his stuff. Because by the time they got to his place, I was like, he literally has nothing. Now, he's a storage unit and there's nothing in it. Most likely, like, it got cleared out. So, what's also interesting, too, is, like, Canada is where they were being transported. Like, some people in Lainey's situation, she seems like she was the only one they had at this point in time. But it's like, how many people have they transported, though? Because that dude was like, yeah, they pay me from time to time to let people stay here until they transport them to Canada. It's like, what's in Canada that they do that? I guess, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe the operation is based out of Canada, or at least where the whole selling operation happens is in Canada. I don't know. Also, I really like the fact it's what Woody did in that bar. The guy was like, oh, you got something to say? And Woody grabbed him and brought him into the dream world, and then like pushed him off a cliff, and then he like snapped back into the real world. It's like, it's so interesting, like, how Woody's power works. Like I said, this season's done some interesting things of really kind of separating it. It's just like, oh, this is general what dreamers can do. Like I said, season 1 tiptoed around the fact that it's like, oh yeah, there's certain things, like certain dreamers have different abilities, and I feel like this season they really separated of like, these are the core dreamers we follow, our 3 main protagonists plus Woody, now the Shadow Man. But him being able to do that and just the thing is, it seems like he always goes specifically to that spot. I guess that's kind of like his haven. Like I said, because it seemed like it hasn't come up yet. I thought that would be so interesting if that turned out to be the case. I mean, we haven't seen them dream together in a while in a particular place, but it was like that train. I was like, oh, it'd be so interesting if that became their hub world, kind of like the Marcello's was kind of last season. That was like the main spot. So I was like, what if I brought that up a couple episodes back, like, oh, what if like from now on when they dream together and everything, they end up on that train because that's their hub world to let them go to different areas in the dream world. But it seems like that's not the case. But still, I'm curious to see what Woody does, because this is like the second time Woody's been kind of working with the bad guys. I mean, to be fair, Woody never stopped his thing. I mean, that was something Burton kind of got on him about last season. Like, eventually you're going to have to pick a side, because he's always flip-flopping on which side is winning and stuff like that. And it seems like he kind of stayed in that same general area, and now he's picking up there in this season. But now I guess his beliefs are kind of being a little compromised. Like, he's being a little conflicted. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, he was someone that, especially because he kind of changed up a little bit anytime it came to Tess, so, which they haven't bumped into each other at all this season. Because Woody's story's kind of been very separated. Obviously, it's all connected, but I'm curious, will he go work with Tess and Taka and Burton or not? Because like Taka and Burton have now connected everything, like, oh, this is all connected, like what the Shadow Man and all that. But it seems like Taka's side of the story is kind of pulling him away from Burton and Tess. Burton and Tess's story seem like it's coming closer, potentially with Bill, but they'd rather not work with him too much, because like it's still hard to trust you after everything. But even he's like I said, he's still like, I did it for your sake, so. But the thing is, once again, like, you wanted to do it because you wanted favor with Tess. It's like, oh, I want to reunite you and your son. It's like, well, you should have told her from the beginning where her son was. Like, you had some ideas, like, okay, I'm going to try and buy your son. You should have let her into the fold. But the fact is you didn't says a lot. And it's like, yeah, it's understandable why Tess doesn't trust you. I mean, because let's not forget, there's a lot of stuff you lied about. Let's not forget Taka was looking into Andy last season. And what did you say? Oh, yeah, I don't know. I was like, oh, when Tess asked you about it, what did you say? You didn't say anything about it. So it's like I said, I don't know whether it's a situation of they set Bill up to be an antagonist last season. It seemed like they were giving him room to be like, no, let me explain, but Tess wouldn't. But it's like, it seems like they really pulled that back. I'm curious, was that always the decision, or did they change up their, like, what they wanted Bill to kind of represent because they are trying to like redeem him a little bit, making it seem like, no, all my actions weren't that bad. Yes, I had a very misguided approach to it, but I had, good intentions all along. I don't know, something to think about, I guess. But I'm also curious to see where Alex kind of falls in all of this. Just the whole conversation, because she's trying to learn about that world too. Part of me goes, is she going to turn into a powerful dreamer too? I don't know. Because that's something I was just thinking about too. When I was watching the episode, does the Shadow Man's abilities work on powerful dreamers? Because the fact of the matter is, I guess because of the catatonic condition she was in, Kumiko, like he couldn't get to her directly because she was too powerful. But anyone he's ever gone after in this particular case have been regular people. He hasn't gone after dreamers. Like, you haven't seen him try and come after Taz, Burton, or Taka, even though he's seen them. He knows James. Like, he's seen their faces, but he hasn't come after them. Like, even in Taka's case, he wasn't he didn't go after Taka. He went after Sabine. So it makes me wonder, like, the more powerful a dreamer it is, the harder it is. Because that was kind of the whole situation of, like, the more powerful a dreamer is, the more able you're kind of able to mess with the construct, the world, Because that was something Olivia was kind of getting at, that basically dreamers are the ones that kind of design the world. Because even she's kind of a powerful dreamer, but even then she's not as powerful as like Burton or Taka or Tess. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to make, because like I said, he hasn't directly confronted any of them. So would his powers even work on them? Like the fear might work, but it might not be like the same sense of being able to do things like he is to regular people, make them do something in the real world. I don't know. We have to really wait and see. Maybe because his assignments haven't really taken him to go against them directly. Like he has other targets in mind, so maybe that plays a role in there. Like I said, a great episode altogether. I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. Like I said, Bennett knows that, Lainey was taken from her, so she's going to be kind of on a warpath potentially because Burton and Tess's face were seen. So probably with her connection, she'll probably be able to figure out pretty quickly who took Lainey from her. Like I said, maybe we'll find out more about that whole situation next episode potentially when possibly Lainey wakes up, so we'll see what happens then. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.